Whether you agree with President Trump's tariff strategy or not, there's no question the world is in panic mode right now.
Trump announced sweeping tariffs on practically every country in the world last week, ranging from 10% to 50%. And now global markets are reacting. Tokyo's Nikkei 225 index, for instance, closed at a 7.8% drop Monday, according to the AP. Germany's DAX index opened at a 10% drop, but gained some ground in morning trading and landed at 5.8% down. Paris's CAC 40 dropped 5.8% as well.
As for American markets, the S&P opened at 4,900, the Dow Jones opened at just under 38,000, and the NASDAQ opened at about 15,000, all down.
Here's the President Air Force One last night.
Is there a Trump put, though? Is there pain in the market at some point you're unwilling to tolerate this idea of a Trump put? Is there a threshold?
I think your question is so stupid. I think it's I don't want anything to go down, but sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something.
Over the weekend, Trump played in a tournament at his golf course in Jupiter, Florida. The White House sent a statement via the press pool that reads, "The president won his second round matchup of the Senior Club Championship today in Jupiter, Florida, and advances to the championship round tomorrow." Unsurprisingly, that sparked criticism from members of the media. Journalist Chuck Todd, formerly of NBC, called the statement astonishingly tone-deaf.
The president did say on Air Force One that he was open to talking to other nations about potential deals. Here was Trump's team defending his moves.
The president needs to reset global trade. Everybody has a trade surplus, and we have a trade deficit. We are paying away our future and our lives. The countries of the world are ripping us off.
Hey, look, here's the thing. This is not a negotiation. This is a national emergency based on a trade deficit that's gotten out of control because of cheating.
Listen, we've got 50 countries that are burning the phone lines into the White House up, and probably the president's cell phone as well, and probably Howard Lutnick's as well. And I've heard from some as well. This is the ultimate deal maker who is a businessman at the head of our government, finally.
Even some of Trump's supporters are speaking out against his moves, however. Businessman Bill Ackman wrote in part on X, "Business is a confidence game. The president is losing the confidence of business leaders around the globe. The consequences for our country and the millions of our citizens who have supported the president, in particular low-income consumers who are already under a huge amount of economic stress, are going to be severely negative. This is not what we voted for."
Tech titan Elon Musk also weighed in over the weekend and advocated for a zero tariff situation between the U.S. and the European Union. So, lots of chaos in the markets, not appreciating what's going on very much. Look, I too am not for the tariffs, so there's not much of a debate for, I think, you and I to have on this exact subject. I think the best defense for the tariffs, if I'm trying to muster one, is as a negotiating tactic indeed to get other nations to get rid of their tariffs. I agree with Elon Musk. I agree with what these people are saying. And if it's true that other nations are calling in to say that let's make a strategy to both lower our tariffs down to zero, that's fantastic. Now, some people in the administration, I think, clearly have that view that we should not have tariffs, and maybe strategically it's about negotiation. Clearly, other people in the administration have the view that the tariffs are good. They're going to be part of bringing back industry and manufacturing to America, and well, thus then they would have to remain in place. They would have to be very heavy-handed for a long time, and that's not good. So I think there needs, and there's no consistency from the administration on which of these two is the actual reality. I think this debate is still taking place within the administration, with the anti-tariff people trying to say it's a temporary negotiating tactic in order to get to zero tariffs. The other side wanting them to be permanent. I'm not sure who's going to win.
I think that is a more generous view of the Trump administration than I would take, because to me, this is a basic issue of economic competence. There has been, just Thursday and Friday, according to the Wall Street Journal, $6.6 trillion wiped off the value of US stocks. There is about half the country that is invested in the stock market in some way. Those people are in immediate, genuine pain, financial disadvantage. That means they are less likely to spend their money. This is an economy that runs predominantly on consumer spending. In addition to that, there are just real questions about the president's level of of economic literacy. Like on Air Force One last night, he said, oh, deficits are a loss as far as I'm concerned, trade deficits. Trade deficits are not necessarily a loss. It can be, particularly in the case of poorer countries, the United States has the money to buy things that it does not itself indigenously produce. Diamonds, for example, in the case of Lesotho, where there's only a very small capacity to do that in the US. And people in Lesotho, where the average median wage is about $230 a month, don't have the money to buy American imports by and large. A deficit in that respect is not a loss of any kind. So you have Trump plowing ahead with this policy that is pretty disastrous for the markets, and I think that will trickle through to the broader economy. And just fundamentally making a mess of things, crashing the markets.
Yeah, look, I agree with you on that. Some of what I'm hearing is not solid economics. Yeah, we can have I have a trade deficit with Starbucks in that I buy coffee from them and they don't buy coffee from me because they produce coffee. If that's what we're getting to, that's just comparative advantage, which is a good thing, even from very basic. And this is standard, by the way, classically liberal or conservative or right-leaning Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell and all those people who will say that trade is good, even if one country produces everything better than another country, it is still beneficial to have for both. Both will be made better off through trade. I've been playing a lot of Settlers of Catan lately. It's a board game that actually illustrates the benefits of trade really well. There's only like 5 resources you can have: grain, sheep, bricks, etc. And you trade, and if no one trades the whole game, the game you take a lot longer to develop your civilization. Now it's a game, so whoever gets, unlike real life, whoever gets to the point of peak civilization first wins, but everybody else's civilizations come along faster too. If you don't trade, the game takes longer. Also, if some third-party government force came in and said, no, in order to make this trade, you have to have an extra sheep produced and we confiscate that every time, that would also slow down the game. It's a nice little indication of why this is bad. But, however, I'm happy to hear stories like the leader of Vietnam and other countries say, let's negotiate this tariff down to 0. Let's have 0 tariffs. That's what we want, right? That's what liberals who are now suddenly saying tariffs are the worst thing ever. I'm a little bit taken aback. I agree. I'm wholly against them, have always been against them. It's funny to see hypocrites like the Heritage Foundation, wipe out all of its website pages that say tariffs are bad and replace it with Hail Trump, God King forever. Yeah. But isn't there something about, like, liberal or progressive people have been for using tariffs? I've disagreed with them. Like, Elizabeth Warren was commenting on this, and she's basically saying, well, the way he's doing it is bad because she doesn't like Trump, but it can be good. I'm like, well, what?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that Elizabeth Warren's argument is that there is sometimes an argument for narrowly tailored tariffs to achieve specific goals. In this case, the average tariff levied by the United States has suddenly sprung up globally from about 2.5% to 20-something%. And to your point about your board game, I mean, the whole issue is exactly that. These poorer countries that Trump is complaining about having a deficit with, if you impose tariffs on them, you condemn them to continued poverty, which means they don't have the money yet to buy American imports by and large. So the whole thing becomes a circular argument. And I do find, and I'm not alluding to you here, I'm talking about other people on cable news who are defending Trump from a conservative perspective. And if Joe Biden or Barack Obama had done something where there was such a clear cause and effect, they announced this policy, the bottom falls out of the stock market. These guys would be, up Pennsylvania Avenue with their pitchforks. And now they're saying, well, this is actually, Janine Pirro saying, I don't care about my 401k. Okay, that's fine, but a lot of Americans do, and they're being hurt by Trump's policy.
Right, which is why I have serious disagreements with people on the right, including my dear friend and former co-host of the show, Batya Ungar-Sargon, who's very in favor of them. Maybe we'll get her on maybe soon to discuss it further. And her whole thing is about making the economy serve the working people in better ways. I don't think making things more expensive for things people are going to buy making that more expensive is going to be good for working people, which is why I hope they pull back from this course of action, particularly with countries. Again, it could be a different thing if you say China is a national security problem and we need to have some kind of policy so that the things, vital industries for national security purposes can be done in friendlier territory, if not the U.S. itself. That would be a very different policy that I think you would find almost universal support for on the right, and you'd even get a lot of Democratic and progressive support, rather than tariffs for Penguin Island.
Exactly. No tariffs on penguins.
Penguins rising up.
Exactly.
All right. Tell us what you think about this subject. Up next, the fallout from the DOJ's admission that they mistakenly deported a Maryland man to a prison in El Salvador. We'll discuss. Stay with us.